No insult to Peanut Hamper for being a robot, which probably has a button on it. But it was hitting my buttons, and I ain't no robot. At least I don't think. Who here is ready for a mathematically perfect redemption? That's a redemption that is mathematically perfect. If you read that sentence and you recognize the significance of mathematically perfect, you would remember a character called Peanut Hamper. Peanut Hamper was from, I know it's a deep cut, like 2 seasons ago. I think Peanut Hamper was in the last episode of season 1, the Exocomp. Peanut Hamper's name was determined to be mathematically perfect. An AI-generated name, if you will. This is a mathematically perfect redemption, but Peanut Hamper was shown to be not a mathematically perfect character because Peanut Hamper was not willing to sacrifice herself. At the end of season 1, she had a chance to use her unique robotic capabilities to save the day. She chose not to and was blown out into space. Okay? Spoilers for 17 episodes ago or something like that. Normally you would say, wow, that was 3 seasons ago. Nowadays you say, wow, that was like 10 and a few episodes ago. Because their seasons are so short these days. That's beside the point. Peanut Hamper returns. Okay? We had a few good episodes this season. A few deep dives into our characters. Maybe it's time to take a break. This episode is so different, so removed from the normal timeline, if you will, of Star Trek Lower Decks, that this just seems like a nice one-off story. A little rest. Maybe this is calm before the storm. Maybe the next few episodes of this are action-packed insanity. But for what it's worth, this episode, I had a good time. I could relax. No big things to worry about. Nothing that cut hard into the canon of Star Trek. Nothing that stepped on the feet of past Star Trek shows. Like I said, this feels self-contained. So in a sense, it's hard to be too critical of it. What can I really say? I can say it wasn't funny. I can say it wasn't interesting. But Lower Decks, it's an irreverent show. Is it too hard on it to say it's not perfect? Is it even too hard on it to say it's not good? Does Lower Decks work best as a forgettable comedic romp? You can decide that, but I'm going to review this for what I got, not for what I wanted it to be. This is Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 7. A mathematically perfect redemption. Looks like our Exocomp friend is getting redeemed. Let's get right into it, by the way. This is mostly or entirely an A-plot show. There is no B-plot, there is no C-plot, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can have a relaxing, unconfusing A-plot that just goes from one logical conclusion to the next logical conclusion, and not really break the bank creatively. Not cause the viewer to break the bank mentally trying to understand it. This is a simple story. And leave it to Lower Decks to find a way to make something that should be ugly into something beautiful. By the way, this episode is a visual feast. It's a smorgasbord, really. Musically, visually, it's smorgan. Let me tell you. Our intro is gone. The regular Lower Decks intro, which is great, is replaced by a new intro using a lower tempo, more melancholy version of the Lower Decks theme as we view the debris field from the end of, what was it, Season 1? The last time we saw Peanut Hamper. The remnants of ships torn apart by pirates, scavengers, you name it. Where the Titan showed up, remember that? The Riker save. Anyway, Peanut Hamper's still there. She's been floating around there for some unknown amount of time. I don't know exactly how long it's been since then in universe, but Peanut Hamper is trying to find a way out, okay? And we're seeing the debris field move around in the dim red sunlight with the cool different Lower Decks theme. That is the intro. That replaces the intro for this episode. Very cool, bold, and interesting choice. I was immediately put on to this episode. I was engaged after seeing that new intro because it was fresh, and I like new takes on old musical motifs. And we got that here with the different Lower Decks theme. Peanut Hamper devises a makeshift warp nacelle out of parts that were remaining there. That makes total sense. You should be able to do that if you have remnants of starships all around you. Talking to an inanimate object, pretending it's your friend, pretending it's her Wilson. She does give it a name. I don't think she calls it Wilson, but that's what I would have called it. She does escape, but not before almost being attacked again by scavengers. Her warp nacelle, this is funny, Peanut Hamper's warp nacelle, she's just basically sitting underneath it with a sensor dish in front of it, and what I assume must be particle deflectors, like a deflector assembly around her, or else this wouldn't work. And you see what is the simplest possible nacelle accelerate our exocomp to this unknown planet. Okay, Areolis, is that what it's called? They don't seem to really know. Multiple people on this new planet call themselves the Arior, and then one of them says they're of Arior, which makes it sound like the planet's called Arior. Okay? And then later on, our crew on the Cerritos calls it Areolis, and then they repeat Areolis again. So I don't really know what you're supposed to call it, but this is a planet of bird people, right? And they're not like the bird people that we already had in the Cerritos. It would be really funny if he got to go down to the planet, though, our green bird fellow. Hey, different bird people from different worlds. Small world or small universe. These bird people are an ancient culture, wise, attuned to the nature around them. And they were like owls or something. They were so cool. I was just so impressed with the presentation here in this episode. It's so thought out. It's so beautiful. It's just, you just want to live there. It was so cool. Disease and all. Maybe I'll retire there. I don't know. But Peanut Hamper ends up there and breaking the Prime Directive all over the place. Peanut Hamper isn't exactly an exemplar of Starfleet doctrine. And the more you watch, the more you realize how true that is. Peanut Hamper swiftly goes about helping this village. Our village chief, killed by a sky snake, says, "Oh, this is the way of things. He killed me, I killed him with my spear, and so the circle continues." No! Peanut Hamper breaks that circle. We've broken the nature of this world, and she saved the village chief. With anti-venom. we are just playing God now, I guess. But good thing Peanut Hamper's not really in Starfleet now. Poing! Ejected, as it were, both physically and academically and occupationally and probably emotionally, because Peanut Hamper is annoying. Peanut Hamper, a great performance from the voice actress, I think. If I should be so bold, it was cute and annoying, which is what you want for a computer with a sentient computerized robot that gets on your nerves and causes problems, but is cute in like a puppy dog way. That's Peanut Hamper. Good performances all around. For our bird friends, the Arior, and for our characters in the show proper, and also Peanut Hamper. One thing leads to another. Okay, how do you think this plot would go when you meet the village chief's son, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is just like those cartoons and those shows I saw all the time. What's gonna happen?" The village chief's son is conflicted. He's living in the shadow of his father. You've heard this before, right? What is he going to do? How does he get out of it? Does he fill his father's shoes? Does he break away and go on his own path? How does he prove himself? An age-old question. So you kind of know how this plot's going to go. But the jokes are tongue-in-cheek. It's a plot, ultimately, about a little robot creature menacing people on this planet with kindness, who would otherwise be in some traditional tale of father-son dynamics in a tribal nature, right? You see, it's funny when you think about it. It's not funny when you watch it. It's played straight, and what we end up seeing unfolding is a romantic plot between Rauda, the village chief's son, and Peanut Hamper, and it's played completely straight. Like there's nothing. It's played like without laughs, just like seeing Rauda, who is a large bird creature, man, a humanoid bird, and a little robot that's like this big, and it just amounts to a toaster. Yeah, they're sentient, but there's just something funny about it. They play it straight, but they know you're laughing at it. as I eventually did on repeat viewings. This got a little bit funnier the more I watched it. It's the classic tale, right? You've helped everyone in this village, but you haven't helped me yet. Shall we start with the physical? Your parts are so different. And then they hug each other, and then he turns around and his wings form the shape of a heart, so you visually understand what's happening. Visual storytelling. That's something we used to do. Back in the day. But this being Lower Decks and being a grade higher than our live action Star Trek fare today, we can show things like that. We can use visuals to imply things. We can create interesting shots again, I don't know why this is. This only works in animated shows, but it ain't really working in live action, I'll tell you that much right now. Live action is just a boring slog compared to this. And maybe the lowbrow, crass humor of Lower Decks is selling it short. Maybe this shouldn't be a comedy. Maybe this show should have billed itself as a sequel to the animated series and just not have any poor language. Like there's something, there's like a core in this show of emotion that is let down by the crass nature. This episode was worse because of the cursing. It wasn't any better. I didn't laugh at all at any of the cursing. I laughed at the concept, right? Maybe somebody out there finds the cursing funny. I don't. But I think this show would be better served by, targeting a younger audience, just slightly younger, or not even that. Target the family. And I think this show could really evolve into something really special, as opposed to just regular good, regular ho-hum. Special's better than ho-hum. So our love plot continues, and I would have put the time-lapse sequence before they admit their love for each other. It just seems like we go from A to B, and then we go from B to Z in like 1 second. Like, whoa. Like, this little robot creature arrives. We hate her. Now we love her? And then we get a time-lapse sequence showing time going by, the seasons pass, to them getting married. I would have put the time-lapse earlier, and then sprinkle in the marriage idea in a few scenes before, and then have the marriage. You could rearrange this episode to make it flow a little better, but I know these things are on a schedule, and I know creating is a lot harder than critiquing. So just understand that. My complaints about this come from a place of honesty and sincerity, because honestly, this episode is an interesting diversion. If anything, a fun diversion. There's nothing wrong with that in the middle of a season. Or season 7 in a 10-episode season. You wouldn't want this near your finale or near the beginning. Let's just put it that way. At their marriage, guess what happens? The Drukmani salvagers that caused all this way back when, they're back. They must have tracked me here, Peanut Hamper says. And the Drukmani ship, it's comedically boxy. It's funny. It's just enough to be funny. It's just a big rectangle. It's so utilitarian. It's so salvagey. So it's a good design. And the captain, of course, I believe is played by J.G. Hertzler, who, of course, needs no introduction, right? Look it up. They beam down to the surface, or I think they take a shuttle, I can't remember. And we're salvaging those ships. I neglected to tell you, but underground on Areolis, they have ancient ships, okay? Wow, we didn't break the Prime Directive, did we? These people who were actually technologically advanced in the past buried their technology to live a life, the simple life, closer to nature, closer to disease and death and nastiness, but undeniable beauty. I guess these ships still work because they start tractor beaming them up, and it looks fantastic. It's so cool seeing the village get torn apart and the debris field and everything going flying. What does this sound like? Peanut Hamper has already been in this situation. Can I use my robotic powers to save the day? This time she is. I gotta do it. I gotta go stop the Drukmani salvaging ship by taking the shuttle and going on board and disabling it. Peanut Hamper, no, don't go. And then she says, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And then Rauda says, you're not few, you're one. And she says, no, I'm Starfleet. Whoa. That was so cool. It was delivered in a way that you would never be able to deliver in like Star Trek Discovery or Picard. It hit me. It hit all the right buttons. No insult to Peanut Hamper for being a robot, which probably has a button on it, but it was hitting my buttons, and I ain't no robot. At least I don't think. So she does disable the ship, and she does come back down, and we're celebrating. She called for help. Huh? We're getting a distress signal from Peanut Hamper? The crew of the Cerritos receives a distress signal from a long-lost, forgotten crew member, Peanut Hamper, and then they show up on the scene. So we got the three-way here. We got Arior people, Drukmani, and Starfleet showing up. We're all descending on the same place. Things take a radical shift at this point. Huge tonal shift. It was a little off-putting, but on repeat watches, I understood what they were going for. Just when we think we're safe, we fended off the Drukmani. It turns out the Drukmani transported on to the ancient Arior ship. And Ransom is on the bridge and he's saying, they've got weapons like we've never seen before. So the Arior were actually extremely advanced. Interesting concept to revisit in the future. The Arior ship is tearing in to the Cerritos. Like it is gouging holes in it. And, I know this ain't no Galaxy class, but a Starfleet hull is a Starfleet hull. And this ship is powerful. And it's not that big. It has an explosive ferocity to it. And a cool design that speaks to the bird-like design of the characters we knew on the surface of the planet. What are we going to do? Rauda has actually gone down into another one of the ancient ships on the planet and flies it and disables the Drukmani who were flying the other Ariorian ship. You're asked to believe a few far-fetched things here. That these ships, number one, would still work after being buried for, I suppose, thousands of years. And number two, that the Drukmani would know how to fly it. And number three, that a person who has had no experience flying anything, no experience with technology, knows how to fly that ancient ship. But Ransom did say they have weapons like we've never seen before. So maybe they have controls like we've never seen before. Maybe you control it with the mind. I'll give them that out. Certainly it's not as annoying as that time in Discovery where at the last minute of season 2, Saru's sister shows up flying a starship or something and helps them fend off control or whatever, and it's just Saru's just like, you've learned to pilot a fighter. Farmer 1 minute, fighter the next. Flying a fighter, that is. That didn't sit as well with me as this did, but your mileage may vary. But why did the Drukmani arrive? They did not track Peanut Hamper. Peanut Hamper was caught red-handed sending a video or auditory message to the Drukmani saying, listen, there's ancient ships here. Come get them. We won't put up a fight. They're salvage. Come on. So all this time, Peanut Hamper was double-crossing Starfleet, double-crossing the Arior. She wanted to get off that planet. She didn't want to be there. All the nonsense she spewed this episode was just a bunch of crap, which made the sentiment of the show up to this point hard for me to take. What good are these fun lines if the sentiment is ultimately deleted at the end? The line about being, no, I'm Starfleet, how am I supposed to take that? It just came from a place of lies. She was not willing to self-sacrifice. She was trying to get aboard the Drukmani ship to get the hell out of there. And willing to sacrifice the ancient cultural artifacts of the Arior. So our character really learned nothing. We didn't learn anything. There's no real message. But this is Lower Decks. Can't we take a break? I know what I like. Emotionally, thematically. This ain't it. But at the same time, Peanut Hamper is the villain. And our villains in this episode get brought to justice. Do they not? The Drukmani were defeated. And Peanut Hamper was defeated. Our protagonist was also the villain somehow. It caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. But not being able to expect the outcome of a story does not a good story make. Right? Anybody can write a story that you cannot predict. Like, right now, imagine if I was talking to you and then an anvil fell on my head. And then the video ended right there. Funny, maybe. But what was the point? What did we get out of it? Well, nothing. I can write any story I want that you can't predict. So therefore, it's not an exercise in skill to write an unpredictable story. Okay? But if it's unpredictable, but it signaled itself, it telegraphed what it was going to do, tricked you, and then gave you a payoff in a different way, and then rewarded repeat viewings, that's different. That's totally the opposite. And I didn't really necessarily feel that with this. For me, Peanut Hamper's journey in this episode felt genuine until it wasn't. I guess in Star Trek, I'm just not supposed to trust sentient computers. I guess. Peanut Hamper is ultimately stowed away alongside Agamus, another character played by the fantastic Jeffrey Combs, who is also another sentient computer. And they're in the a storage house for self-aware megalomaniacal computers. Dime a dozen in Star Trek. Did we need another one? Could we have gotten away with the happy ending and Peanut Hamper redeeming herself? Could we have done it? Am I barking up the wrong tree? Would that be a wrong move for Lower Decks? Something that is billed as a comedy? Irreverent? Unpredictable, as it were? Am I wrong? Anyway, if you look at the runtime for this episode, if you stop at around 20 minutes, you're getting a fantastic, mathematically perfect redemption story for Peanut Hamper. And then in the last 3 or 4 minutes, it just goes off a cliff. Maybe you'll find it funny. Maybe that's cool. Maybe it's exciting. For me, not so much. But again, at the end of the day, this is just a rest, it's a break, an interesting diversion. Visually, fantastic. It was the world, everything on this planet had wings, flying turtles, flying goats, living in these trees, all their little customs and things, the eggs that they were hatching, everybody like flying around and the cawing, and it was so fun. The cave, we're down in these caves, there's waterfalls, we're looking at cave paintings of ancient ships. Rauda says they folded the sky or something, so they're calling space sky. However, one of the kids at the very beginning of this episode calls Peanut Hamper Spacebox. So I think Rauda was maybe just being romantic and replaced space with the more romantic term sky. Wow, this one's been watching Picard. Lots to see. Lots to do. The sights, seeing the sights. You can make a brochure for this place, and I think you'd really sell people on it. You sold me on it. Musically, wonderful stuff here. At the beginning, and then again at the end. 2 different takes on the motif of Lower Decks. It's so cool when you can take a theme, change its key and its speed, and then change the emotion. All kinds of incidental music in the background when we're exploring Areolas. Cool stuff. I mean, visually, you got the Drukmani ship, the Areor ship, the Cerritos, the new planet, the debris field at the beginning. Awesome. Musically, I just said awesome. Thematically is where we're failing. Thematically for me is weighted high, but visuals, if you have like A-class visuals and A-class music, you can get away with a weak theme kind of, as long as this does not become the norm. This being a break, I'm willing to overlook the strange themes and strange overarching ideas for this episode. I'm willing to overlook a lot. And this episode, I don't know if I'm going to return to it, but I might. So if you know me, you can guess the score. This is a maybe. This is a maybe return to. Definitely a watch if you're watching through for the first time. You may enjoy this if you haven't seen any other Lower Decks episode, because it almost stands on its own. Just understand that Peanut Hamper was a Starfleet officer ejected from the ship in an earlier episode during a battle. That's all you really need to know. Peanut Hamper, like I said, not an exemplar Starfleet officer. Useful. She's a robot, built-in replicator, all kinds of wonderful powers, but nothing going on upstairs. That's Peanut Hamper, and that was a mathematically perfect redemption. The redemption was not mathematically perfect, and neither is its score. This score is a 6.5. It's got stuff to offer for me. It doesn't quite hit the high of Reflections. It's a little bit more interesting than the past episode. There's things to see and do here, And it does take you on a bit of a ride. So I'm going with 6.5. And I'm standing by it, and I hope you're standing by me. I'm Mark, and I'm going to see you next time I see you. Goodbye.